Hey guys, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the Potter Podcast. And this one's going to be a good one for you because it's going to start a series that I'm going to go into as it relates to just the current market, what we're seeing, and if you are a buyer or seller, what you need to know, and maybe some tips and some secrets for you as well as we do this. So let's get into it. I want to thank you guys for following me. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, what's up, guys? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for following. And for those of you that are listening later, thanks for tuning in and thanks for listening. Let's get into this. I want to talk about just a little bit of the insight on the current market. And I'm going to start for a buyer because that seems to be where there's a lot of, I would say, stress and different things happening right now as it relates to this market and the things going on. And so then I'm going to move into and talk about what to expect from a seller standpoint as well. And then also kind of give you some insight on where I'm going to go in this series to kind of discuss some deeper things as it relates to what you can do as a buyer or seller in this market as well. So with that being said, for those of you that are a buyer and you're in this market and you've been out there, or maybe you're thinking about getting involved in the chaos and everything going on, I want to list a couple things here, talk about some things that we've been seeing, and then also give you some insight to help you better prepare for what's going on. And so right now, again, hey, we all know this. If you don't know this, you are now going to be informed of this again, but interest rates are still low. So that is a benefit to you as a buyer, is to take advantage of those interest rates, right? Like, you want to be able to get into a house. Right now we're still seeing it around like 3.5%. But I do have some insight. There is some rumors going around out there that is talking about the rates that are going to be increasing here in the future. And so how soon in the future, I don't know that. But I do know this is we are starting to see the rates gradually start to climb a little bit. Not as much to make a huge difference, but you will, I think, in the next 12 to 18 months for sure, see a spike and a climb in interest rates. And so if you are on that fence of like, well, should we buy, should we not? Like, I would say, now is still a good time to buy. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to buy. But I'm going to get into some of those things here and help you strategize and plan and how you can get into something in this market, even though it's crazy and it's chaotic. So I want to move into my next thing as a buyer, and to understand is that cash is king. Like, we've been talking about this. Sometimes I share this with people as well as we're out looking and writing up on properties. And the reality is cash is king in this market. So obviously, if you have the cash to go put down to buy a house, that puts you in a good position to purchase. What does kind of stink if you don't have the cash is that there's a very good chance that you're going to be going up against some cash offers. And so it's just good to understand that, knowing that even if you have a lot of money to put down on a good conventional loan, right now, if you're going up against a cash buyer, the chances are, the seller's going to want to lean more towards that cash than they are conventional loan, or even obviously an FHA or VA loan. Now here's the reason for that. Obviously, you can close sooner because you're not going through a bank or a lender or anything like that. But the other big thing, because of the crazy market and things going for 20, 30, 40,000, sometimes 50 or 60,000 over the list price, is when you have cash, you don't have to worry about an appraisal, because the appraisal is only needed if you're getting a loan through a bank. And so that is a pretty easy one. Even if the cash offer is 20, 30 grand below what some of these like escalation clauses are showing, like in these contracts, a seller might be enticed to take that cash offer, even though it's a little bit lower. I know it's crazy to think about, but like, I've had agents that are getting upset with me on the list. I'm on the listing side, and they're getting upset because they're like, well, we had an escalation way up to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, first of all, we all know that probably wouldn't have appraised out at that price, right? So you were just trying to get the house by going as high as you possibly could on an escalation. But the other thing is it's cash, and my seller wanted to close as soon as possible, so that puts them in a good position. and they also don't have to worry about an appraisal. Okay, so that's just the reality. So if you are a conventional buyer out in this market, if you're an FHA or a VA buyer, I mean, you definitely need to know this, that you need to know the sequence of events and how it relates to like the financing part, you know. So like if you are a VA or FHA buyer in this market right now, it will be extremely difficult, no matter how high you're willing to go up or can go up with an escalation clause, because in a lot of these other conventional and cash offers, contingencies are being waived, and obviously with cash offer, there's no appraisal, there's no inspections or things like that that need to be done that come along with that loan, as there would be with like an FHA or VA. And then obviously if in a conventional, if they're asking for an inspection. Okay, so that's the one thing to know, is that cash is king. That's going to be the biggest part of the competition out there. So just know that as you're writing up on offers. Some of you have already experienced that. But if you haven't yet and you're thinking about getting into the market here soon, just know that there's a lot of competition out there as it relates to that. Okay, the next thing that I will say as it kind of goes along with this is having extra money is key. Okay, why is that key? Well, if you have extra money, it allows you to go up more in an escalation clause, but it also allows you to pay a difference if the appraisal comes back below the agreed upon purchase price, because that's what we're starting to see now. It's crazy how fast things shift in this market. And for those of you that don't understand or don't know, like literally things are changing daily. And so if you have an agent that doesn't have the experience or is kind of part-time, or I would highly recommend not going with someone there, because they're not going to understand, one, what is happening to put you in a good position to go get a house, but also they're probably not going to understand what type of competition is out there and what's happening on a daily basis with these offers. One of the things that we're seeing right now is, you know, even 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago, you know, the first thing to get waived is the inspection, right? People are waiving that inspection to put their people, or to put the buyer in a better situation, to have a better chance of getting the house, right? That was usually the first thing that goes off. Okay, it still is the first thing to go off. So for those of you knowing, like going and asking for an inspection right now in this market is gonna put you in a position where you're probably gonna get pushed to the side a little bit, because if you have 10 offers over here and 8 of them are asking for no inspection, they're probably going to be looking at those 8 offers, knowing that they don't have to deal with an inspection contingency over here and worry about all those things going on and have to fix anything, right? So again, in this market, you want to be thinking, how do we set the seller up for the best success, because they have the leverage, and what are we going to do to basically make our offer as clean and as aggressive as possible in this market? Okay, so the inspection's out, but having extra money is the next thing I want to talk about, because it's key. Because the next thing that we're starting to see as inspections get thrown out is you're starting to see these appraisal contingencies either get thrown out, or a buyer saying, hey, we'll match up to $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 of the appraised value if it comes back below. So let me explain that for a second. Okay, if you're a buyer in this market and you're going up against 10, 15, 20 different offers, let's say that, you know, you're putting an escalation clause in there that's going 20, 30 grand over the asking price, right, already. You know that by doing that, there's a chance there that the appraisal may come back below that agreed upon purchase price. So for example, we'll just use rough numbers here. Let's say that the house is listed for $200,000. You write up for $200,000 with an escalation clause to $230,000. Let's say there's 4 other offers that come in at $225,000, $227,000, $228,000. You end up getting to an agreement with the seller at $230,000, right? Okay, so the purchase price is agreed upon by the $230,000 because you're willing to go up to that amount. But now we have to worry about the appraisal, right? And let's say the appraisal comes in, and the appraisal comes back at $215,000. So between $215,000 and $230,000, there's a $15,000 difference there, right? What the seller is asking in this market right now is that the buyer pay that difference, right? Or it's agreed upon up front in the purchase contract that the buyer is going to be paying up to a certain amount of that difference. So sometimes it's $5,000, sometimes it's $10,000, sometimes it's $15,000. Whatever it is that the buyer is comfortable doing is key there. But also you need to understand as a buyer that this isn't money that can get wrapped into the loan. Okay, this is money that then becomes more money out of your pocket as you go to close. So in this example, let's say there's a $15,000 difference there, and let's say that your closing costs at 3.5% of the purchase price is roughly going to be around $8,000-ish there, and then you're going to add $15,000 onto that. Okay, so now your closing costs just went from $9,000 to adding another $15,000 onto that. Now you're going over $20,000 of closing costs that you need to bring to the table at closing. That is key because you need to understand that money has got to be there. Now, if you're a seller, if you're a listing agent representing the seller, what we're starting to do, and what I would advise everyone out there that's listening that is an agent and is representing the seller in these markets, is that as you're getting these offers together, you should be asking for proof of funds to make sure that buyer is willing to pay the difference if it comes back below the appraised upon purchase price, and that's what you guys agreed to. If you're not doing that, shame on you, because there's been some situations where buyers are trying to get out of contracts because the appraisal comes back below, and they're like, well, we don't have the $15,000. Well, that's too bad. You better find somebody in your family to gift you that $15,000 or somebody else, because you're in a legal binding contract. And so you're obligated to come up with that money somehow, some way, or you can get taken to court. And that's what we're starting to see too. We're starting to see buyers, sellers, agents, different people being sued and taken to court because they didn't understand the contract and they didn't understand what was written in that contract. So it's extremely important to know what you're agreeing to and the terms that you're agreeing to so that you don't get caught off guard as you're moving forward. The last thing that I will say, and I've kind of touched on this, is as a buyer, you need to be willing to waive all contingencies. And what I mean by that is we've just talked about some of them. So you need to be willing to waive the inspection. You need to be willing to waive the appraisal. You need to be willing to waive the termite inspection. You know, some of these things that have come along with the contract, like in order to keep you separate and in order to make you stand out, by waiving as many contingencies as you possibly can is going to make you stand out and make a seller, or entice a seller to want to go with your offer. Okay, here's where the series comes into play, because I don't have enough time to talk about it in this podcast, but why this series is going to be happening for the next couple next podcasts that I do. I'm going to do a specific one on how do I stand out from other offers. Okay, so on a next podcast coming up either next week or in the following week, I'm going to be doing a podcast that talks about how do I stand out from other offers that are taking place in this crazy market, right? What are some things that I can do as a buyer to stand out, and what does that look like? Okay, so stay tuned for that one if you are a buyer and you're thinking about getting in. Now I want to get into the sellers, okay? Here's what you need to know about the sellers. If you are someone that's thinking about getting your house listed in this market, you need to know one thing. This has changed, and I know it's crazy to say this, but you need to know this as a seller. No one's going to accept an offer contingent upon you selling your house. Okay? I need to make that very clear. It's very highly unlikely that your offer is going to get accepted with it being contingent upon you having to put your house up for sale. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, what it means is the days are gone from being able to go find something first and then list our house second. Those days are gone. That's not happening in this market. I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. I would say, to just be fair and to be open in what we're seeing, is for the next 12 to 18 months, it would be extremely difficult, in my opinion, for you to go right up on a house with it being contingent upon your house selling, because a seller doesn't want to wait or run that risk of your house not selling, even though it is a tough market. They don't want to run that risk, because then that's another party involved. Okay, so understand that. It's another party involved for something to go wrong. So let's say that person goes and writes up with it contingent upon them wanting to sell their house. They get it under contract, and then something falls apart because of the buyers that are buying that house, that are buying their house. Does that make sense? There's a domino effect. So again, it doesn't help making your offer look very clean and aggressive when there's other people out there that are selling their house first before they go and they write up on a different house. Now, I will say this, it looks a lot better if you go and you list your house, you get it under contract, and then you go start looking at houses, because now you're writing up with it contingent upon your house closing, not with it contingent upon you putting your house up for sale. Okay, so there's a big difference there, but again, it runs that risk of, does a seller really want to see if things are going to play out over there and have things fall apart, and then now they're back in limbo stage. Okay, again, like I said earlier, we're seeing a lot of stuff happening, right, in this market. We're seeing things that no other agent has ever seen in the history of their career in being in real estate. Okay, I've talked to agents that have been in this business 25, 30, 40 years, and every single one of them that I've talked to has said, Ryan, we've never seen anything like this before. Okay, so if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, I can't speak for everyone everywhere else, but if you're listening somewhere else, you can probably relate to some of these things. But the market that we're in right now is a market that no other person has been in before. And so again, I need to make it clear, and you hear me say this all the time, if you don't have an agent that has been in the business long enough or understands what's happening on a daily basis, you're setting yourself up for success, you're setting yourself up for failure and not success. Because you need someone who understands and that has knowledge and experience, and I'm going to get into some of these other things of what will benefit you from having a realtor that not only has the knowledge and experience, but also has relationships, okay? The other thing you need to know from a seller standpoint is you need to expect chaos, okay? That's just the reality of the market. So if you're putting your house up for sale, here's my advice for you. Take a vacation, go somewhere for a couple days, go stay with your parents, go stay with someone outside of town, or wherever, but don't plan to come back to the house for the first 48 hours. Why? Because you're probably going to have a high number of showings on the house. For example, I just listed one this last weekend. We listed for $175, and we had over 40 showings. We had like 15 plus offers on the property, and so it was crazy in the first 48 hours. Okay, so you want to basically, my advice for you to get the most out of your house and to net the most amount of money so that you're not running into issues as it comes to showings and things like that, is just plan to be out of the house for 48 to 72 hours. Then tell your agent that, hey, we want to go over offers at this given time on this day. Okay, that's probably going to be the best thing. Now again, trust your realtor, trust their knowledge and what they're saying about the market and the things selling in your neighborhood, so you can kind of decide what maybe be the best in that situation, okay? But expect chaos. Expect there to be a ton of showing requests. Expect there to be a ton of traffic going through your house. If there's not, you're priced too high. That's the reality. If you don't have any traffic going through your house right now in this market, you're priced too high. And that can be something that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But I just mentioned this as a third thing here. Trust your realtor, okay? Your realtor knows the timing, the days on the market. They know relationships, or they have relationships, or they should have relationships with other people, whether that's other buyers or whether that is other agents, okay? You need to know something as it relates to this. You know, again, I've kind of hit on this a little bit, but I'll talk about this and I'll share this story with you. There was an agent on my team yesterday. She called me. She's like, hey, we're writing up on this house. I really hope we get some help and some expertise as far as what we should write up and what we're doing, just to make sure that I know that I'm in the right ballpark and what we're asking for and if it's aggressive enough, and I wanted to get your thoughts. So I told her my thoughts and all that stuff, and I asked her, who's the agent? And she said, oh, the agent is so-and-so. And I was like, I'm great friends with that agent. Let me call her. And let me see what I can do to kind of spice things up for that. And she goes, thank you, I appreciate it. I called that agent. Okay, this was an agent that I actually did my first deal with when I got into real estate. And so I've known her for a really long time. I called her up, I said, hey, I've got one of my agents. She's got a client that really loves your house. And if there's anything that we can do, let us know, because we really want to get this house for her clients. And she went down the list of like, hey, here's the things that my seller's going to want. Here's our situation, blah, blah, blah. I was like, great, this is perfect. We will do everything that we can to match those things and to make it a good situation for your sellers. I went back to my agent. I told her we got a contract written, sent over to them. They got it accepted. Okay. This is again that what some people don't understand in the line of work that we do is I always tell my agents don't ever burn bridges. And this is a reason why. Because we got into a position and I believe we got that house because of that relationship that I had with that other agent, you know? And she mentioned to me, she's like, I would love to do another deal with you. Every time I do a deal with you, it's smooth and it's easy and it's great and it's fun. And so like, who doesn't want to do as an agent? Like those are the types of deals I want to do with all other agents that are writing up offers on my properties with my sellers, right? Like I want the transaction to be fun. I want it to be smooth. I don't want to be dealing with somebody that's a prick or that's a jerk. Like those people go on what we call my shitty list, and those people go on that. And I'm telling you, if you don't think that this happens, it happens all the time. But like if I'm in a situation where I've got 3 offers on the table and my sellers are asking me like, hey, all these offers are pretty much the same, like what would you advise us to do? Again, I'm going to say, hey, it's completely up to you guys as far as what you want to do, but if you're asking for my advice and my opinion, I'll give it to you. And I'll share with them and I'll say like, hey, these are I've done a deal with this agent, it's gone really well, I've done numerous deals with this agent, blah, blah, but if there's someone on that list that hasn't been pleasant to work with, you better believe I'm telling my sellers that, because I always let them know and say, hey, deals that we've done with this person in the past haven't gone so smooth. We'll get it done, we'll get through it, we'll do what we need to do, but this person can kind of be a prick. And I just let them know up front, and they're like, well, you know, sometimes that will sway that seller to be like, well, we don't want to work with that person. Like, this is the same offer over here, and if you like this person and working with them better, like, well, we want to go with them. You know, again, I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just telling them up front, like, hey, here's the experience that we've had in the past. So, again, that can come into effect, and that's, again, why you want to have an agent that has experience and knowledge and the relationships with other people in the city there, because sometimes they can get deals done for you based off of their reputation in that community and with the other agents. Okay, so that's very key. All right, so trust your realtor, trust the relationships that they have there. Make sure that that realtor that you're going with has a good reputation. Okay, and then trust them on pricing and timing and days on the market and things like literally, if they're in this business daily, they are going to know these things. Don't question it. You know, I've had in the past, I've had a couple clients that are like, you know, hey, I was selling some stuff before getting our house ready, and these people came by and they're like, they're really surprised at the price that we're listing at. And I said, trust me, this is where we need to be. This is going to move me into my next point here. But I said, trust me, this is where we need to be. I guarantee you that if we're in this price range, we're going to get you what you need, okay? If we go higher than that, I can't guarantee anything. And this is what moves me into my next point. Don't overprice your house, especially in this market. Because like I said earlier, if you're overpriced, you're not getting traffic on that house. But the other thing is, and I've had numerous people tell me this over the years, but like, you don't want to be just listed, right? Like, you want to be on the market and in the market. Because being listed doesn't mean anything. Being on the market and in the market means everything, right? And here's the difference there. If you're listed and your price too high, you're just listed. You're not on the market, you're not in the market, because basically no one is interested in writing an offer on your house for that price. But if you're in the market with the competition and what other things are selling for and going for, and you're going to trust your realtor on this, I'm telling you right now, like, you're going to be putting yourself in a position to get those offers that are 15, 20, 30 grand over the asking price, because they know how to price your house and market it in this market and to get the most traffic through to create that frenzy, okay? For those of you that are listening that are thinking about selling, I'm going to be doing, like I said, this series I talked about for the buyers, where how do I stand out from other offers, okay? Moving forward, I'm going to do another podcast for you as sellers that talks about how to choose the best realtor to represent you, okay? I'm going to walk through some different things that we do that I feel like is going to help you in this market know what you need to do. And obviously the given answer is you use us and you're going to have a fun, stress-free, I'm joking. But we would love the opportunity to at least sit down with you and talk about listing your house. But I want to talk to you about how to choose the best realtor to represent you. And I'm going to be doing a podcast on that. So stay tuned for that if you were thinking about listing your house in the near future as I talk about those things. So what can we learn from this podcast today? I think what we can learn is the reality in this market is that things are crazy, right? Like I said before, we've seen things that we've never seen before, right? Like this market and this time, especially coming off of like what we've never dealt with before as far as like COVID and things like that, like it's challenging, it's been frustrating, it's been rough on both sides if I'm being completely honest. Like it's not just that we do the we do the listings and it's easier. Like being a listing agent right now is stressful and overwhelming too, because when you have 30 plus offers coming in, you have to make sure that you're accounting for all those. You have to make sure that you're understanding everything that's written in that and that you're communicating those to your sellers right away and before you're not letting anything fall through the cracks, right? And so like that can be extremely stressful, making sure that you've just got all your ducks lined in a row, right? And getting through that process. On the buy side, obviously, it's frustrating, it's challenging, it's rough because you're going up against 15, 20 different offers and different contingencies and different other things that may make you feel uncomfortable. But you have to understand that this is something we've never seen before. And because of that, that's wise for you to go get somebody that is experienced and knows what they're doing and writing up and seeing being written up on a daily basis on their listings and as they're out there with buyers and what other people are writing. So if you have the right realtor, keep this in mind. You need to look for someone who is experienced, knowledgeable, that's in this market on a daily basis, because they're going to help you stay calm through this storm and help you come out victorious. It might take 2 or 3 tries or sometimes 5 tries of writing up, but you'll eventually get there, okay? You just have to be patient. You have to persevere. And that's what I've been telling my team as we've been working with numerous buyers and writing up numerous contracts. Gosh, this is probably the most contracts that I've ever written up in a year ever for clients and not getting them, so it's like it's crazy to just be able to look back. I think I was like looking back at stuff last night and I'm like, I've probably written up like 60 offers this year that haven't got accepted, probably way more than that, but it feels like you're doing that sometimes in a weekend, and it's just crazy. Like it's crazy, but it's also the reality in the market that we're in. And if you're a buyer or a seller, now is a good time to buy or sell. I mean, just based off of the things that I just went over, like it's still a good time to sell, still a good time to buy. For those of you buyers, if you're thinking about like, well, why is it a good time to buy if I'm paying 20, 30 grand over the asking price? Because if you wait and things continue to appreciate the way they have, now that house is going to be worth $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 more 3, 4, 5 years down the road, potentially. So with that being said, you're not overpaying. You're just getting in now and taking advantage of the craziness in the market, yes. But you're also setting yourself up for success later on down the road when you do go sell, because you're going to make that money back. So again, I'm going to be going over 2 more podcasts moving forward in a small series here. How do I stand out from other offers? And then how to choose the best realtor to represent you. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Peace out.